Good morning, everyone. R. Jerome Harris here. In this video, I'm going to talk about image. Image is very important because an image can portray the truth or it can portray a lie. Let me tell you a short story and then I get into this presentation because it's going to involve this image of Jesus. I'm going to talk about the United States, just as an example. Many people who live outside the borders of the United States, they want to come here. And there are many people around the world who view the United States as a bright, shining object. Why is that? It's because that's the way the United States portrays itself overseas. Now, there are a lot of people overseas who are awakened and they know that the United States is not a bright, shining object. Now, for those of us who live in the inner cities or who have experienced what it's like in the inner cities know that this is not true. If you have observed the corrupt political process here, you know that is not true. In the theater of foreign service, State Department, the United States government is very selective as to who they appoint to positions overseas. Why is that? Because those persons represent the United States of America. So they're not going to just assign anyone to those posts overseas. Now, I worked in foreign service for 6 years. 3 of those years was in Africa. Now, when I arrived there, I was shocked to learn that there was only one black U.S. ambassador. And that was back in 2012, 2015. I know since then she quit and took a job here in the States. And I also know that they replaced her with a white man. So Africa has 54 recognized countries. Now, I say recognized because Egypt doesn't consider itself African. But if you include Egypt, there would be 55 countries in Africa. But let's go with the 54 assigned countries on the continent. We have 50 embassies in Africa. Thus, there would be 50 ambassadors. Not one black American is assigned in Africa as an ambassador. Why is that? Its image. The United States government likes to portray itself to the world as being a white nation. Else, it would fill those posts with what represents America. A mixture of whites, blacks, brown, and red people. But it doesn't do that. Thus, that image is a lie. And especially in Africa. Africa is a dark continent that is black people. Yet there's not one black ambassador assigned to a U.S. embassy over there. When I worked in foreign service over there in a small African country, I was the only black supervisor, senior level supervisor, that country has ever seen. And the person that I worked for was a white American. Thus, the staff members in that particular African country never had supervising them a black American. And I won't go into that story because it's a long story, and it is a story, trust me. So those 50 ambassadorial posts in Africa are filled by primarily white men, white Americans. Now, where am I going with this? Image. Image is extremely important. An image can be a lie or an image can be the truth. The representation of the United States as being a white nation, as being represented by the ambassadorial proxies, in those posts, say in Africa, for example, being filled by all white men, that's a lie. That is not a representation of America's population. So that is a lie. That's a false image. Now, this transitions into Jesus. There are false images of Jesus. I have not seen any true images of Jesus. And the reason why is because when Jesus walked the earth, none of us alive today, and any of you watching this video, we've never seen Jesus to know what he looked like. But there is an image that is being portrayed of him, and it is a false image. What is that image? Jesus being a white man, clean, white-robed, smiling all the time, polished. That is a false image. I don't believe Jesus walked around in a white robe and had long hair. First of all, he was the son of a carpenter. So his hair would not have been long. It would have been short for safety reasons, I would think. And he would have been walking around in a white robe because he worked as a carpenter's son. He would have been dirty. And that region of the world is a dusty place. We read stories of where women washing the dust or dirt off of his feet. So if dirt got on his feet, his clothing would have been soiled as well. And him being frail and thin, no. He would have been a strong and powerful man because he was a carpenter's son. See, but many refuse to accept the image of Jesus being that. And one must also consider that Jesus was a son of God, and he was also a son of man. He was a son of God in what way? Because he came from God. He had a father. He was a son of man because he came from the womb of a human woman. Like the rest of us, he peed, he defecated, he probably had sexual urges as he matured in life, and he might have had a wife. We don't know. There's a lot about Jesus as the Son of Man that we do not know. But yet people refuse to accept that Jesus was just like many of us. He was a son of man. Why would he not have urges? He ate food, right? He felt hungry. Now, we know that Adam wasn't a son of man because Adam did not have a human parent. Adam was a son of God. God created Adam. Now we read here at 1 Corinthians chapter 15, beginning at verse 45. So it's written, the first Adam implies what? There must have been a second Adam or a last Adam. But the first Adam became a living being. The last Adam, that will be Jesus Christ, a life-giving spirit. See, we're referring to both of these individuals. Adam was a son of God. Jesus was a son of God. But Jesus was a life-giving spirit, and he is a life-giving spirit. That's why we should attach ourselves to him and follow him very closely. So with regards to Jesus, there's a lot of false image about him out there. And that false image has been a cause of stumbling. Many people refuse to envision him as someone who was a son of man, who was just like us. And I would not be surprised if we learned that Jesus had a wife. And again, we don't know. But what one should not do is forget that he was also a son of man. We do know that there was a big gap in his life. It's like he disappeared and went someplace. I believe he went down to Egypt. And in Egypt, he received an education. Thus, when he returned, what did the people say? They were astounded by his knowledge. And they asked the question, is this not the son of the carpenter? But he's so knowledgeable. So where did Jesus get his education? I believe in Egypt. And that he was in Egypt, he blended in. Egypt back then, as it is today, is primarily black people. But the black people are pushed into the background. And what is brought to the forefront is a false image also of Egypt being Arab. And I can understand why the current Egyptian government doesn't want to be folded into calling itself African. All one has to do is look at that Sphinx. That Sphinx has all the images of an African. The high cheekbones, the big nose that was chipped off. And actually I did some research on this. French soldiers used that nose as target practice to shoot it off. A flat nose, a negroid type nose, big lips on it. It looks African. It looks nothing like the Egyptians that we see portrayed today. And in that 10 Commandments movie. I won't go there. But image is very important. Remember, Jesus was a son of God, and he is a son of God, but he was also a son of man. And for you Trinitarians out there, think about this too. Jesus was the son of God, meaning what? That he came from God. He had a father. He has a father. But he was also a son of man, meaning that he came from a human parent. So Jesus is from God. He is not God. So that's what I have for you today. Something to think about. This is Earl from Harris. Thank you for listening.